Progress.
Hi, Mimi. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you, Colleen.
Thank you.
You started recording, correct?
Yes, I'm
heard it.
recording, so Sam can start.
Okay.
They did.
He gave us.
We're all
the go.
set. Good evening. It's Monday, June 17th, 2024, and this is a meeting of the Southborough Planning Board. The Planning Board is now in session. The first item on the agenda is 120 Turnpike Road, 40B, but I think we have the Select Board Chair with us, and I think she wanted to talk collectively of all three 40Bs, so we can join those three together for discussion to begin with. Does that work? Ms. Cook.
Hello? You sure? It doesn't sound like it from here. So it's on? Okay.
I can hear you.
It has been a long day. I would like to sit down. No? Okay. So thank you for letting me come, Mimi, Jesse, and the planning board. I'm speaking tonight as a chair of select board, so everything I'm going to say is something that is backed unanimously by the select board. So unless there's one thing I'm going to deviate from at the end, but I'll make it clear that's me and not the other four members. So I'm here to reiterate not only the current positions of the entire select board with respect to the two fairest proposed 40Bs at 120 and 250 Turnpike Road, but to provide clarity as to why we unanimously support both projects. There are currently three 40B projects that have filed for comprehensive permits with the ZBA. Because they are in the pipeline, none of them can be rejected due to any of them causing the 10% threshold to be exceeded once permitted. As we know, Southborough has not reached the 10% state safe harbor, which allows the town to reject and or substantially control a proposed 40B project. We are currently 77 units short of the 10% threshold, correct? I think, yeah.
Not,
Okay. I think it's 77. The two fairest projects would add about 120 rental units to our housing inventory, and all would count toward the 10% threshold because they're rental. A combination of the comprehensive permits being issued for those two and the rejection of Park Central's current application would result in the two smaller projects being built in Park Central, not at the current time. Town Council has opined that the 2-year moratorium included in the agreement between some of the Park Central neighbors and the Park Central developer that is now being challenged in court did start running once the developer terminated the agreement last summer. So we're about a year into that. So another year, they could, if he gets rejected with the court case, he could file again a year from now. Therefore, even if the Park Central developer loses the current court case, he would likely be eligible to file next summer. The Select Board does not believe that 40B is a panacea for solving our affordable housing issues in Southborough, nor do I think you guys think that either. None of us think that. It helps a little bit, but with prices and rents as high as they are in our area, it is still difficult for many families to afford the discounted prices and rents mandated by 40B. But every little bit helps, and 40Bs are part of Mass law. With respect to the two fairest proposals, Select Board feels that they are a net positive to the town as a whole, and I emphasize net. Nothing's perfect, but we believe that the good outweighs the bad as far as those two. First, their proposed locations are in areas that do not directly affect secondary roads. Both projects are designed to directly access Route 9. Second, both projects are relatively small and therefore aren't expected to have an extraordinary impact on town services such as schools. Both fairest projects are rentals. Rentals generally do not attract as many school-age children as for purchase units. We are also in the process of deciding what to do about Neary School and have locked in an agreement with the state funding agency as to the maximum number of children who will attend our K-8 schools for the foreseeable future. That is, the building's going to be built with this locked-in population. A large influx of children in a short period of time could be an issue. Third, we have a fast-growing senior population. By 2030, our demographic studies predict that more than 30% of Southborough residents will be seniors. Seniors need practical choices as to where to live as they age. Madison Place continues to have a waiting list for units and has a substantial population of seniors in residence and very few school children. As a result, we believe that there is a pent-up demand for more reasonably priced rental apartments in Southborough. Fourth, we would like to expand our tax base to allow real estate taxes to be controlled. Each of Ferris's 2 developments should contribute about $500K in total tax revenue once they're fully built on an annual basis. The Neary project is most likely going to be very expensive, and therefore the Select Board is trying to find ways to mitigate its impact on the residential tax levy, which represents 84% of the total tax levy currently, and that keeps going up. And with all of this said, the Select Board does not want the concerns of the Stewardship and Open Space Committees to be ignored with respect to 120. Select Board was not aware, I'm going to go with me. I was not aware of the 2019 decision requiring the donation of the 6.2 acres to the Conservation Commission at the time you wrote our letter. And I have read your letter tonight that you wrote, and it's absolutely in there, it's number 6. So don't know how I missed it, but I had no idea about the donation requirement until recently when it was brought up very overtly. We attached the letter that Stewardship wrote to the letter we wrote to Mass Housing in support of the project. We also wrote a letter with qualified support for the project at 250 Turnpike Road. In that letter, we listed the major concerns that had been raised by the abutters, but asked that the project be deemed eligible and allow the ZBA to work through the issues raised and hopefully come to a satisfactory resolution with the abutters. As for Park Central, the Select Board has not sent letters in support of the project to either Mass Housing nor the ZBA. We have not formally discussed the project. So this is where I'm only going to speak for myself tonight. I do not support Park Central. I think the serious traffic problems it would cause in that neighborhood is enough on its own to support the opposition to the project. It's a possibility we're going to double the size of Neary. That's one of the, we've got 2 choices on the table right now for Neary. New 2-grade school, new 4-grade school. New 4-grade school doubles the size of what's there, so that's that much more traffic on the roads leading into Neary, kids riding their bike, walking to Neary, so it just makes a bad situation worse. When we had the migrant families here a few months ago, I went there, at least I did too, went there every single day. So let's say I was there 11 straight days. 2 of the 11 days, I almost got hit pulling out, and I did nothing wrong. I looked, I was coming, all I want somebody's on my tail, blaring the horn. So it's obvious how dangerous it is. So I am not going to speak for the other 4, Park Central, but I really hope that that project does not go through as a 40B, because I don't think that it's tenable because of the traffic.
Thank you. Mr. Stein.
Kathy, thanks a lot for coming in. I thought it was a really good idea for you to come and present your views on those 40Bs in the context of, and this is kind of what I want to bounce off you, the context of the planning board's role in that, which we anticipate modification submission by Mr. Ferris and his group on 120. 250, as I sit here right now, maybe I'm mistaken, but there's nothing in our pipeline other than the normal comment process.
Well, in 250, they also, for 250 Turnpike, we did receive an initial application for the Contractor Bay building that they're adding there. So Ferris Development has gone to the ZBA and gotten a special permit for 2 buildings on 1 lot and 2 uses, the contractor's yard, in addition to the storage facility there.
Right, but we're not the permitting authority on the 40B component.
Not on the
Which is
40B.
what
Right,
Kathy's here to talk about.
but we
so.
anticipate the site plan for that.
Okay, but we do have a more direct impact role on 120 if we
Well,
do get an
That
application.
needs to be discussed.
If we get a request for a modification from the proponent. Do we agree on that?
I think so.
Yes,
My
I
opinion
think
is-
so.
Okay, I
So,
just want to be sure everybody is clear on why Kathy is here and what, it means for us, really. And I think beyond what I just said, that's pretty much it. Would you agree with that?
I do.
Okay.
But I would
So-
add one more thing that Mimi may disagree with, but I think that where you have ended up right now, Mimi's taken a lot of flack from Dave Ferris, no doubt about that, and hung in there, and I applaud her for that. But it looks like he has truly kind of changed the way he's approaching things and trying to work with you guys as far as that one goes. I know you're sick of hearing me saying that, but I've been in my building for 20 years, so I look right down on that parking lot, so I know exactly where he's proposing the building might be moved to. And I just, if you hadn't stuck with your guns, as far as the land that needs to be donated, then I don't think that that proposal to modify this would have ever happened, so I commend you.
Thank you. So let's just talk about, the NERI piece for a second. When I had spoken directly with you, I had come away with the impression that NERI's disposition was somehow related to these 40Bs. And I just want to be sure we're clear on this. If we get a modification request on 120, the ask is that we view that somehow in the context of the NERI disposition. Is that fair to say?
That's fair, but let me be clear. So I think the connection may be indirect and not direct. Number one, we are trying to not end up with a project that adds a lot of school kids all at once to our school system, because, if we're going to build a new school that's going to cost what this cost is estimated at, we got to get it right. We can't build a new school and go, whoops, it's not big enough. So we want those projections to be looked at and understood as far as where we think the school age populations go in the next 10 years.
Right.
It's all based on projections, and sometimes they're wrong.
And is your thinking that Park Central would have a greater influx into the school system?
Yes, because
Okay.
they're for sale, for one thing. This time it's for sale, it's not rental, right? So it's for sale, so the answer is yes.
Right. So, can you just go back to the NERI thing for a second? Because I must have misunderstood. I thought that there was a possibility that NERI could be closed outright.
No.
I misunderstood.
No, so we're looking at two possibilities. A new 2-grade, new 4-grade. If we got a new 4-grade, Finn gets closed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so we do end up with one less school, and then we consider Finn from possibly being a community center, but again, that's another $15 million too. So the other indirect impact is we need real estate tax revenue, and these 40Bs would give us some.
Okay. So let's just bear with me for a sec.
I will.
We're going to view this modification that we don't have yet in the context of the impact of the schools, because of the indirect, if the theory being, if 120 and 250 happen and Park Central doesn't, that's the best outcome for the schools.
So
And a lot of other things.
That's right. If it's
Okay.
not the best, it's the least worst case. You could look at it that way too.
Okay. What precludes Capital Group from moving forward with their 40B at Park Central in the context of 120 and 250 being approved? Are you saying that because we'll have safe harbor, the town will have recourse to decline Park Central?
We won't get to safe harbor unless their current application is rejected.
Okay.
So they're in the pipeline, so you can't kick them out even if you get one that gets you across. So they'd be there. So this court case is very going to influence a whole lot of what happens.
So I guess that's the part that I'm a little fuzzy on. There's really no guarantees. Us playing a positive role, so to speak, in 120 and 250 does not necessarily guarantee in any way that we won't end up with Park Central also.
True statement.
And is everything that we just said been vetted by town council from a municipal law standpoint?
Everything I said or you said? I said?
We just, all I'm doing is
Yeah.
Running back
I've
to
talked to
you,
him
so
about
I know what's going
I've talked to him
on
about whether the 2-year clock has started with what they filed last time. He says yes, he believes so. That was his exact words, so yes.
Okay. Thanks a lot for coming in. Appreciate it.
Ms. Houlihan.
Thanks, Kathy, for coming in and expressing your opinions and the select board's opinions. I also just want to reiterate that there is still an opportunity for appeal. So that's what can happen. So to your point, there's no guarantee ever. abutters can appeal anything. And that's what happened that's why the Park Central is a little bit delayed in its process. So I appreciate the perspective. I have not been able to follow the NERI thing, so I think that's helpful information in the context of how we can influence, but again, it's site plan modification, which we have not seen yet, and I think it's been requested. Yes? I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Murray.
Hi, Kathy. Thank
Hello.
you. Thanks for coming in also. I just have questions, or maybe it's a comment, I'm not sure, on 120. I guess it's an observation. So the whole 40B process is supposed to enable a more efficient process, right, with boards and committees. I feel like sometimes the planning board gets left out of the loop, and it's just a game as to whether the proponent's going to come to us or whether the ZBA is going to notice, and we're writing a lot of letters. I maybe want to ask you, how do you foresee us working better together with the ZBA? Because I envision, in a way, that both boards are sitting there during the hearings and weighing in. Maybe not in a joint meeting, but I don't really know. I think, so that's maybe a question for you, but I think that, I think this board is, I speak for this board right now to say, I think we're all pretty pleased at where we're heading on 120. But there's still some pieces that just aren't right. And if you think about what a permitting board does, different than an appeals board and different from what you guys do, we have to make sure those pieces are correct. And I'd like to see that they're done in the right order. So, for example, the donation of the land, that should have been done as soon as it was noticed. And even Attorney Tellerman
Agree.
said, gee, they should have picked up on this, because the first thing an attorney does, it's okay that you missed it, but they had 3 or 4 attorneys. One of their attorneys should have found it, and what Jay said is, well, they should have reported it to Mass Housing. So I'd like to see that we do things in the right steps. They should just donate the land. And how do you do that? Is it an A&R? Is it subdivision control? It should just get done. So we should just start doing things in the right order. And then we can attack some of these little things without it coming to kind of a standoff. So my question really, that's my opinion, but my question to you is, how do you see that planning board has a seat at the table? Because that's the vision on a 40B. Isn't just that we're going to get pushed to the side. It's that we all have a different piece of the pie, and we have to consider the town as our stakeholder.
So before I answer that, let me go back to the donation. So, and we, collectively, everybody, that land should have been donated 4 years ago, and we wouldn't be having a discussion. It should have been done. So we've played a role in this too. And why it didn't get done, I don't know, and I haven't gone back to try to figure out where the ball got dropped. But it definitely got dropped as far as that goes. Looks like where you're heading is the land's going to get donated. So I believe that's part of the proposition that is on the table that hasn't been submitted yet, so I hope that happens. As far as your seat at the table, you guys got to help me. You know more about this stuff. You know more about 40B than I do. Do you have a seat at the table? I guess. Select Board have a seat at the table? Not much for 40Bs. Now, this really is in the hands of the ZBA. It looks to me like you guys are working well with the ZBA this time around. Last time around, which we won't go into details, was a disaster as far as what happened. And we're past that, we hope, but it looks like this time they are absolutely listening to you guys as far as what you say when you go to the meetings, et cetera. So I don't know what you mean by a seat at the table on a 40B, a clean 40B. I don't know who's going to sit at the table besides the ZBA. If you go back to Madison Place, look how that one went through. It went through with hardly anything. I mean, Bob Moss is a good guy. He's a good developer. He knew what the rules were, and it just, boom, 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 and got approved, and we've got a pretty nice apartment complex because of it. So I don't really know, Debbie, the answer to your question as far as your seat at the table, because I think it depends. This time you've got a real seat at the table because of the land donation. The 250, maybe not so much, because the issues there are probably going to be ZBA issues, I would think, at the end. But again, this is, you guys know more about 40B than I do, so I don't want to go much further with that one.
If I can just comment. The 40B permitting process is supposed to be a one-stop shop. It's not supposed to be just the ZBA. It's supposed to be other permitting boards working with the ZBA at the ZBA. So the proponent doesn't have to bounce from board to board to board. So we should, and, you know, I go to all the meetings.
Yeah, maybe seat at the table is the wrong word, but yes, we should make it easier for the proponent, because I believe in 40Bs, and I believe we should make it easy, and I believe the proponent is looking to work with us. I think that's really positive. But I think that there are some mandatory steps, site plan modification being one, subdivision control being another, and maybe Select Board can help weigh in on that. I think that should be done, you know, in parallel or first, and it seems like it's sort of maybe thought of being last or something like that, but that's putting the cart before the horse. I think that we really need to do things the proper order. That's all. Thanks.
Ms. Braccio?
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you for coming in. I think a lot of what you said has probably answered some questions that the public had on the process, and I think you've acknowledged, which I appreciate, on the donation piece, that, you know, it was missed. And, you know, maybe it would have affected, you know, your support of it to some degree, and maybe it could have taken care of it earlier as well. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for coming in for that. On 250, I know that there's question on the is it 1990, Mimi? Yeah, so I hope that's going to get resolved as well. And again, I know ZBA working with the abutters is, you know, that's part of the process as well. But I just want to stress, and I think this is a good first step in collaboration and acknowledging the feedback. And I didn't sit on planning board back when the original, and I'm not going to say too much about Park Central, but I will just say that what got overturned was the concern that this board had. And I think that's a fair statement. And so it's.
I agree with that.
But it's good that you're here and you've acknowledged a concern that this board again had. And, you know, again, I view that as a collaborative effort. And hopefully it'll be a continued collaborative effort going forward. So thank you.
The board speaks first. Mr. Carter, then. So thank you, Kathy. I appreciate you coming in. And Lisa is right. Park Central, the comprehensive permit was revoked due to a legal issue that the planning board brought up, and we weren't allowed special counsel, and we weren't given a voice, and it cost a lot of money and a lot of division and heartache in this town. So when these other 40Bs came through, I made absolutely clear to town council that I wanted to make sure that things were done legally, and these, you know, past permits and were dealt with above board, so we wouldn't end up in the same situation again. So we had a good first step on the site plan modification. They came in once, they withdrew it, this board accepted that withdrawal on the advice of Attorney Chaplin that was here at the time, saying that if we denied it, then we would lose our chance to have any power in this particular process, and it would just go to litigation. And if we accepted their request for withdrawal without prejudice, we would maintain the ability to do site plan modification, and they would come back when they had something. I went to the ZBA meeting last Wednesday and was floored to learn that town council has been negotiating with the proponents' council, and town council made the decision that they do not have to come back for site plan modification. Now, in my experience, and I looked at the Mass Municipal Association and the Mass Municipal Law Association, Town councils are advisory, they do not make decisions, especially when that decision is in the hands of this board. So I find it very concerning I think this board voiced this at the beginning of this process when the select board immediately sent letters of support, and then our town council is saying that he works for the select board, although that's not what our bylaw says. There's something that's very wrong here, and now town council is making decisions for the planning board. So I still believe they need to come back for a site plan modification. What they've proposed, they did not say that they will donate it. It says right on the plans, we may. And I think that needs to be clear, and it's not the same parcel that is on the approved site plan. So I think we still have some work to do there, and there's a little bit of a disconnect. And I don't know how town council makes decisions for a permitting board.
So what you just said is news to me, so I'm not going to comment on it because I don't know enough to comment on what you just said, other than when you say you believe planning board has jurisdiction, site plan modification, you're talking about the new plan where he moves it to the parking lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
To make sure that that jives with what is on file. So that is not the same plan of land that was approved with the site plan for that condition.
Right, so I will have a conversation and try to understand what's happened here, but this is news to me. I didn't go to the meeting Wednesday.
And I have to reiterate, it's very, very concerning to me as an elected planning board member that the elected planning board does not have counsel.
So I'm not here to address that either because I didn't think about that piece of it. But can I go back to Park Central for a moment since we're talking those three?
Sure.
So to show you, again, I'm speaking from me, I've tried to do a couple things over the years. One thing as my seat as advisory chair, contacted a few of the neighbors to see if they would support the town buying Park Central land. Talked to them. These are key people. They all said yes. To use it for something appropriate. Had talked to different people about what it could be used for. Select board at that time did not take it up, and I'm looking to my left here. So that went away. She's not listening to me. And then I called the developer directly and said, would you please not do this? Just give up. You've been doing this for 10 years. Don't you want to give up? And the answer was no. I've got 4 children, so not giving up. So I've tried very hard to do what I can as far as Park Central goes. So I just wanted to make that clear. And again, that's me talking, not the select board.
If I may. So I'm not sure if those executive session minutes have been released, so I'm going to be cautious in what I say.
I don't know either.
There was a discussion. Again, I don't want to say too much.
You don't
because
have
it
to say
wasn't
much. The point I'm trying to make is I really am not in support.
It was
of Park
brought
Central.
forward. It was brought forward to the board, and I think that there were other discussions that took place around how the board or how the town could potentially obtain the parcel.
Yep.
And I'll just leave it at that.
I agree. Okay.
This is kind of flooring me a little bit. So how do we not get informed by town council? I mean, there was a great effort made for us to entertain a modification as an agenda item. And we had no notification from town council that was no longer required.
I found out from the proponents' council that said, I've been discussing with town council and most recently today, and that is no longer required.
The select board wasn't informed of this? I mean, this is,
Additionally,
that's like outrageous.
Additionally,
That's true.
they're reducing the parking on the, for the office buildings, and they plan to get a variance from the ZBA to do that and not to seek a site plan modification on that either.
All right. Kathy, thanks for coming in.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you, guys, seriously.
Thank you.
I had a
Yes.
question, but it's been answered that, I heard that there was that statement about no need for modification at ZBA. I'm speaking as an individual, Freddie Gillespie, 78 Southfield Road, because the commission has not discussed this, because this is new information. But I will say, we thoroughly reviewed the modification request. We thoroughly reviewed the subsequent compromise proposal, and we thoroughly came to a conclusion that it was a good idea, and that we came here with a room full of people the first time for the modification, and then after this, everyone we discussed it with said that it was a good plan as a start to move forward. It was, no one said, this is the deal, this is the place, the location, but we supported and were very supportive of the Mr. Ferris' proposal. Not necessarily saying it, we knew there would have to be further discussions over the location of the dog park. It's really the septic system recharge, the dog park playground, on taking that section out of the open space parcel that should have been donated years ago. That needs to be moved somewhere else, because it's a clear cut right up to the property line, and no trees scheduled. So from Breakneck Hill, you have the same thing, sight view right to Route 9, the office buildings, light coming through. It's not as bad, but it's not acceptable. And after that proposal, I spoke with the attorney for Mr. Ferris, who was in the room, and he agreed, it can't be planted, there will be a clear cut, and that, yes, they could look into moving it back. But the understanding at that meeting, when everyone supported, the neighbors came in with a letter, the open space had a letter, was all that there would be an opportunity for the planning board to do site plan review, modification, because you have an existing site plan where there's land in a certain shape, certain size to be donated. That same site plan has a place where there's supposed to be parking. The Open Space Commission isn't dealing with the parking or any of that, but we did have, look at the height of the building, the sight lines, the balloons for the neighbors. We thought those sorts of things would be done. And to hear now that they can just go to the ZBA and not have to come back in front of the planning board doesn't rule on 40Bs, we're aware of that. But you have to have a clear title or clear use of the land that you're proposing. You can't just put a 6-story apartment building in a parking lot of 2 office buildings by 40B. I'm sorry, it's not the first time. Phones always have 2, ask anyone. Okay, so the point is, this is a big deal. This is a big deal for all the citizens that trusted what we heard, that if you gave them the extension, I forget the term, sorry. If you didn't deny the modification and you gave an extension or you allow him to withdraw without prejudice, that they would come back with a proposal for a compromise and we would continue down site plan modification road. And now to hear that that road has been blown up is really, really a big problem. And I also want to know, I can't speak to town council for the Open Space Commission unless I put in a request. I believe the planning board often says they've requested and he hasn't shown up. So my question is, how does the developer's attorney have direct access to taxpayer paid for town council when so many taxpayers were in the room, citizens, that did not agree to having site plan modification taken away from them at their expense? So that's a big question for someone to answer. Thank you.
We did request the town council or someone, one of his associates attend tonight, but
And
we were declined.
but developers' attorneys have direct contact without anyone knowing about it, and they're making decisions that aren't theirs to make. I believe they're advisory to elected boards. It's a problem there.
Yes, sir.
Paul Carter, 6 Hillside Avenue. I have a couple things here. One, which the board has a copy of, I know, that I submitted to the zoning board of appeals. I'll just hand it out again. I know Kathy doesn't have a copy.
I do not. Thank you.
I think it's important. I know you guys get so many stacks of papers.
And we read every word.
Yeah. Well, I'm a civil engineer. I design road, bridge, bike paths projects, development projects. I've told you I did it for 4 years for Beals and Thomas, and I was the planning board engineer for the town of Medway for 2 years. So I understand what's supposed to be going on here. Kathy, the 40B process is, as Mimi has said, the Zoning Board of Appeals is supposed to take technical review and the comments and the positions of the appropriate boards in consideration when they make decisions as the Zoning Board of Appeals. Normally, Zoning Board of Appeals acts on, if somebody appeals a planning board action, a subdivision or something, they act on somebody who needs relief from a setback, okay? They're not a technical board. They don't review technical parts of the plans, and that's missing here, okay? And the planning board is expressing it as strongly as they can, but the planning board needs the support of the selectmen on this particular issue. So that's, I'll say that. The second thing on those plans there, the first plan shows sort of existing conditions. If you just take a look at it, you'll see it shows the 6.2 acre parcel in the back, which didn't exist as a parcel. The only reason it exists as a parcel because if it's donated, okay? Otherwise, it's one whole piece of property. There's 3 things that need to be happening here. One of them is the comprehensive permit, but the other thing is the site plan modification, because those lots which haven't, and the other thing is a subdivision, okay? Right now, there's only one lot, other than the fact that they've donated the 6 acres, okay? So there is no 40B for a lot, because it hasn't been subdivided yet into 3 parcels. So the subdivision has to happen at the same time. It's in the 40B regulations that they have to submit a preliminary subdivision plan. They started to present something that has 3 lots. It doesn't show the road. A subdivision needs to have a road. And what I've said here is that if the planning board chooses, they can work with a developer and maybe have the road just be an easement, okay? But they need a subdivision plan which shows a subdivision road and which shows lots off the subdivision. And they cannot do an A&R plan. They don't have adequate frontage. They didn't have adequate frontage to begin with. And that's why there's a site plan modification. So the site plan modification has to happen as well, because those lots, which now are all part of one big lot, are being divided into 3 lots, because the parking on those lots has changed, okay? They approve a certain amount of parking on those lots. That's changed. That's why there has to be a site plan modification. So look at the plan, go to the second plan. The second is the concept that the developer submitted. So the developer wants the ZBA to approve in concept, okay? And the concepts that they've submitted are incomplete. This concept shows a zigzag of property line for the conservation land in the back. That's not a subdivision plan. You know, even they admitted that it has to get cleaned up. So what I've done is I've copied onto those last 2 plans that conservation land line. Okay, that conservation land line was part of the planning board decision for the site plan approval. It's shown on that garage plan. Look at the last plan. You'll see that line. Okay, so that donation, that land donation, which was recorded, was also recorded with a plan. That particular plan showing that particular lot line for those 6.2 acres. Okay, so that's complete. That donation is justifiable and complete, and the developer realizes that and is accepting it. But to some sense, my other comment, and I don't have extra copies, I'll give you my copy. his dog park and his playground are ruse, okay? What member of the town is going to take their kid to the back of this office park, to the back of this affordable housing project, to play on a playground? The dog park, the conservation land already allows dogs. I've been walking my dog there for 14 years. That's one of the main reasons I object to this project, because I'm an abutter. I'm a resident of Southborough that uses that land that the developer decided nobody would care about, okay? We don't need a dog park there. What they need is their septic field. What they need to do is have their engineer do a preliminary conceptual septic disposal plan which defines how big their field needs to be, and then it can be shown on the concept plan. That's a big thing that's missing, okay? There's a number of things that's missing. The ZBA and the planning board, you know, they're proposing a 6-story building. That's the most important thing that's being proposed here, okay? There needs to be a decision, and the boards need to take positions, and maybe the selectmen should take a position, you know, as to whether anything more than 3 stories is going to be acceptable in this town. There's no other buildings over 3 stories other than Madison Place, and that's 4 stories. To be requesting 6 stories is outrageous. The other thing they need a letter from the fire chief saying that 6 stories is safe, okay? They need a letter from the fire chief, nothing less, because the fire chief is going to decide what is a safe number of stories for this building. And the number of stories defines the footprint of the building. The concept plan shows a footprint. You can't put together a concept plan showing with a footprint until you know how tall it is, okay? Their concept plans leave a lot to be desired. I know what a good site plan looks like, okay? Their concept plans and their site plans fall so short, and they need planning board technical assistance. The peer review that's going to happen is after they prepare detailed plans. Any decision or opinion about the concept plan cannot wait through the peer review. They've got to do 3 things now, and together. They have to do a preliminary subdivision plan, they have to do a comprehensive permit, and they have to do site plan modifications for those 2 permits.
Thank you.
It's Eric Laser, 9 Scholar Drive. Can you hear me? So I didn't come here tonight actually expecting to say what I'm about to say, and Ms. Cook, I'd appreciate it if you could listen to this. So this has been on my mind for a while now, whereas we've gone through this process on these 40Bs, and I think, one, it reflects a lack of leadership of what Al Hamilton says, the select board being our premier leadership entity in the town. I think it shows a significant lack of leadership and thought on the select board's case for a long-term thinking on how to deal with these affordable housing issues. Ferris is an easy solution because it's there in front of you, but I think the thing that is missed consistently from the messaging from the select board, but I think other boards have some awareness of, is you're burdening specific neighborhoods with massive developments. So whether you support that, that's great, but the reality is a 4-story building to, Mr. Clark? To your point, there's nowhere else in the town. And there's been 0 pushback at all around the consideration on the scale of these things. Now, we're in productive discussions with Mr. Ferris to try to come up with a solution, but the reality is the select board has also failed to recognize, much like they did with the land donation, the fact that the abutters have legal rights to that property that date back to the 90s. Now, that may be a convenient lack of memory, but then nonetheless, the abutters are prepared to fight, much like the folks at Park Central did. So again, I put the task to the select board, and I'm more than happy to get up in front of one of your meetings, which is what I was planning on doing. But I think it shows a significant lack of leadership, because this is a long-term issue. This has been around for years, and it's to task to everybody who's been on these boards not to deal with the affordable housing issue, such that you end up with neighborhoods, 1 or 2 across town. In this case, it was the abutters at 120, and now it's us, that have to bear the town's entire burden for affordable housing. It's convenient, it's easy, sure, but it's not leadership, right? And it's very disappointing that our premier leadership organization isn't showing leadership and trying to figure out a better solution that fits with the character of the town instead of putting these massive developments. It's immense frustration, as you can tell, from ours and itself, but we're ready to fight this. Not that we want to, and we hope we can work with Mr. Ferris, and I give them credit for trying to work with us, but the select board have not been helpful at all, and appreciate your listening.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Matt Probst, 31 Woodland Road. I'll be very brief. I represent Friends of Breakneck Hill, breakneckhill.org. We want to continue to thank the Planning Board for your diligent efforts with respect to the 120 Turnpike Road project. We're also grateful for Mr. Ferris for being willing to try to push forward with a more appropriate solution that doesn't back out of the previous commitments associated with the land, the 2019 site plan. And we also, of course, strongly believe that any changes to the existing site plan or new plans must and should go through the Planning Board, and it's not a town council decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Palmer, 131 Parkerville. And I guess the question I'd have to follow up on Eric's points, what board in the town owns the master plan for the town that's been updated and approved throughout the years?
The planning
Because in
board.
that master plan, it spells out exactly how the town wants to approach affordable housing. We ought to be following that plan. And it doesn't seem like we are. I think you guys are trying to follow the plan. I'm not sure the other boards are.
Yeah, that is a planning board is tasked by Mass General Law to create a master plan, which is supposed to influence the decision-making process in the town. I don't think the master plan specifically spoke to 40Bs, but by law, we have to accept 40Bs if we haven't hit that 10% threshold. So it's not all in our control.
So I've read through the master plan a couple of different times over. It's a long document. It's a great piece of work, and it's been updated over the years. And it does have a number of guidelines in there in terms of how to address affordable housing within the town. And every time I bring it up to one of these other boards, nobody seems to know what the master plan says regarding affordable housing. So I think we ought to be, as a town, going back to that master plan that's been reviewed and approved by the town residents over and over again, and we ought to be following that.
We do have a master plan implementation committee to ensure that the master plan this time, we just finished it in 2021, that it is followed through with this time and doesn't just go on a shelf.
There are currently 8 attendees online, no hands raised.
Anything else on this? Just a couple things. So on 120, I'm not quite sure how to handle the town council issue. I believe whether a site plan is modified is in the hands of the planning board, and our bylaw says that it's up to the planning board to decide whether it's a minor modification or whether it needs to go through the hearing process. I don't know how town council can make that decision. Yes, ma'am.
So I just want to make a comment around Mr. Ferris and his attorneys. And I think what's worrisome is that in the Beehive development, which was on Route 9, this is exactly what happened, is that their counsel spoke to our counsel. We didn't hear about it. And it is really concerning because it's a repetitive offense. And I think that we do need the select board to help us try to understand why is that allowed. He is one of the only developers whose attorney has direct access to our council. And this is, again, as I said, it's repeated. And so we raised concern back in the Beehive time, and that we did everything that we could to help them and try to move that process forward. And so my worry is that this continues, and I don't think this behavior should continue. I don't know how Select Board needs to interfere, but I do believe there's got to be some interference. We should minimally be copied on the communications with the, I mean, they shouldn't even happen. In my opinion, they should be, channeled through the appropriate channels. Much like how a board meeting is held, everything is done through the chair. It's just respect. We're elected. He is supposed to represent us, and I would just urge you, Kathy, as you go back to Select Board or you go back to Attorney Tellerman to have those discussions, because I just don't think it's appropriate behavior, and it will continue to raise red flags in this town, and it will be a whole conspiracy theory. Like, I am warning you that this will not be good, and it will not be a good look for Mr. Ferris and his attorney, and how everything is handled in this town.
Yes, sir.
Paul Carter, 6 Hillside Avenue. I assume we pay this attorney to give us written, defensible decisions, not verbal, okay? He owes a written decision if he is going to influence and have this much influence on boards. I'd like to see a written decision. As what we pay him, okay, he should be able to put it in writing. I don't think it means anything until he puts it in writing.
He did send an email, but a town council advises they're not a decision-making authority. So this is very, very problematic.
He should put it in a letter. It's official. If it becomes official, it should be in a letter.
Do we need to write a letter to the select board, Kathy?
So, yes, I think that would be helpful. Don't
Thank you.
Don't you?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Freddie Gillespie again. May I ask, is it appropriate, or would you be willing to consider, if it's in your court to decide whether it's a site plan modification for a public hearing, major or minor, I think that was the term. At what point will you do that? You have the plan in front of you. You know, irregardless of what town council says, can't you just, as the board, use your authority to decide that you believe that whichever one of the types of site plan modifications is required, and let Mr. Ferris know that, and that you should start down that road? Do you need permission to do what you're authorized to do?
I don't think so, but trying to work more collaboratively, if we can get the select board and council in the planning board all together on the same page, perhaps then we can all move forward collectively in a more collaborative manner.
Okay. I thought that was a real collaborative meeting we had the last time we were in here discussing this. So to hear this as the outcome is, pretty off-putting. And I also realize, I believe it's the applicant who has to apply for a modification, not you tell them you need one, so I'm mistaken there. But this is news, and it's upsetting. So many people worked really hard reviewing the prior plans, the modification, and then reviewing the proposed alternative. And we felt it was a real kumbaya moment. if you can say that in this room that night, and then to come back now and hear this, it's really very disturbing.
Can I ask a question, Mimi?
Yes.
So I was out of town last week, so let me just ask you, based on the ZBA hearing that took place, how did the discussion and the decision that town council made affect ZBA going forward? I guess I'm trying to say this the right way. Did it affect, if taking planning board out of a role that we're supposed to have, how did that affect ZBA as they move forward? What were the ramifications of that with excluding planning board? Does that make sense?
So ZBA was taken aback, too. They didn't know that there was this private wheeling and dealing going on behind the scenes. Attorney Talaman was not there. Attorney Chaplin, is that his name?
Yes, Stephen Chaplin.
Was there. And when I got up just to make sure that the ZBA knew that this piece had not been fulfilled, and they still owed the planning board the modification, and that's when the proponent's attorney said that he had spoken. And then Attorney Chaplin said, well, we've done all the research, and it's close enough, so it doesn't need to be modified. So the ZBA is moving forward. I think their next meeting is July 31st, prior to which the proponent will put together a real engineered plan, and they'll have civil peer review done and hopefully get comment from public safety. But I would think that after we hear back from the select board on how to resolve this issue, we would have to include the ZBA in. But I'm still adamant that the site plan needs to be modified.
Okay, thank you, Mimi, that was helpful. Kathy, I'll just add that we're meeting, the ZBA is not meeting till the 31st on this. The planning board is meeting again on July 22nd. So it would be great if you could spearhead some form of discussion. So hopefully this can be resolved to some level by our meeting on the 22nd, or at least be able to update the public. Thank you.
I'm just not saying a lot because this is all news to me, so I really can't speak until I really understand more. So I really do need your letter with very specifically what needs to be done here, right? And then we will.
Yes.
No, and that's fine, Kathy. Again, I was hoping to set an expectation out there that, again, working together, we could get an answer one way or the other. That's all.
Well, you certainly can get an answer one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
One last comment?
Yes, sir. You're going to have to drag yourself back to the mic.
I really appreciate the patience of the board of letting me speak. This does not have to be this hard, okay? All the pieces of the puzzle have been laid out very clearly, okay? The planning board is willing to work with the developer, okay? The developer is willing to work with the planning board, supposedly. But what happens is that each time we seem to make some progress, the developer decides that he doesn't trust the planning board, that he has to go around the process, okay? This, you know, I said what the subdivision can be. I think it could be an easement. That would be appropriate, and that would indicate that the planning board is working with the developer. The developer's revised his plan so the building is no longer on the conservation land. That's big. That was the big thing, okay? So I just asked the developer, stop making it so hard. I mean, your board has so much other important things to do. This is just wasting time, you know, and energy, and it does not have to be this way.
The proponent did commit to submit a subdivision plan prior to the 31st also, and to fly balloons.
I'm waiting for the balloons. I can't wait.
Okay. Just quickly on 250 Turnpike has filed their comprehensive permit, and they're before the ZBA on June 26th. And I don't see much of a difference from what went to mass housing in this plan, so I would think the planning board's letter still stands. I don't think there's anything new to say. And town council did email the proponent's attorney, in which the planning board was copied on, that there is that 1990 special permit. And there is an older site plan that limits the development on that lot also. Yeah. That's in our letter, I think. And then the last thing, Park Central is back before the ZBA on July 17th, and that's an update on where the court case is. So I don't know how long they're going to be able to string the ZBA along. But, so anything else on 40Bs? Anyone online?
We currently have 7 attendees, no hands raised.
Okay. The next is a discussion item, planning board appointments and recommendations to the select board for appointments. So,
Want me to-
go ahead, Karina.
Gotta let me say a couple of sentences anyway tonight. If you recall, on the May 20th planning board meeting, we did several appointments, and the last committee is the Master Plan Implementation Committee, which are one-year terms, and that new committee has 5 members expiring on June 30th. We have received feedback from Sam Stivers, Debbie DeMoria, Judith Watson, that they wish to be reappointed. However, Catherine McKee, I believe she indicated that she was intending to step down. And I haven't heard back from Mr. Warren, William Warren, and perhaps Debbie knows more from being on the committee, if he intends to continue.
I don't. I have
Okay.
not heard back from Mr. Warren also.
All right, so we could at least appoint, the planning board could at least appoint enough members for a quorum, if you'd like to move forward with that, and then if Mr. Warren decides in the future that he wants to continue, he could be reappointed.
I would just like to thank Kat McKee. She worked on the master plan, did a ton of work, was very, very helpful, and then also volunteered to be on the implementation committee. She was a very, very valuable volunteer, and I thank her for all her hard work.
I just want to add that Kat let the committee know, that Master Plan Implementation Committee know some time ago that she was getting very busy on her other committees and that she'd be stepping down, and she was nice enough to sort of hang on because she didn't want to keep us, get us stranded in any way, which was really very thoughtful. So I agree. She was a terrific member. We're going to miss her.
So word out to the public, anyone who wants to be on the Master Plan Implementation Committee. There's at least one vacancy. It's really fun, isn't it, Debbie?
So just a couple of questions. On the deed research subcommittee, I received notification of my reappointment, and I went and got sworn in. Is that true for you too, Amy? Is that true for you too, Freddie?
Go get sworn at.
Don't forget. And you know what? I'm not sure what the status is of my Shopsy reappointment. Miranda, do you happen to know?
Right, last I heard is that Select Board put several committee board appointments on hold that were recommended.
On hold until they expire? Oh, okay.
So that is part of the next discussion. So can we,
All right, I'm sorry. Okay. Motion is I'll do them one at a time, to appoint Sam Stivers to the Master Plan Implementation Committee for a one-year term.
Second.
For motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
Motion is to appoint Deborah Demuria to the Master Plan Implementation Committee for a one-year term.
Second?
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, abstain.
Brascio, yes. Oh, sorry, Brascio, yes.
And the motion is to appoint Judith Watson to the Master Plan Implementation Committee for a one-year term.
Second?
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
We will draft those notices of votes and get them to the town clerk ASAP, and then you'll be notified to get sworn in.
So, I thought I had notes somewhere. At the last Select Board meeting, they were going through the annual appointments, and the Select Board pulled out several committees to not be reappointed, to put on hold, and to call the committees before the Select Board tomorrow. And those committees were SHOPSI, the Community Preservation Committee, the Open Space Preservation Committee, and the Stewardship Committee. The reason being that Mr. Hamilton believes that all boards and committees should follow the Select Board's policy and agenda, whatever that is. There's no such thing, as far as I know. And according to the Mass Municipal Association, select boards have appointing authority, but once members are appointed, they should be able to operate without interference. The select board are not the overlords of the town. These committees were created by the legislative body, and if there's a change in policy or charge, it's up to the legislative body to vote that change or charge in. Ms. Braccio was voted by this committee to be a representative on the Community Preservation Committee. And Mr. Hamilton is saying that an elected planning board member representing the planning board on the Community Preservation Committee is required to follow the agenda of the select board. This is a serious problem, and I think all residents in Southborough should be very, very concerned. And Mr. Hamilton posted on the My Southborough blog this afternoon his beliefs of how this town should operate, all under the select board in furthering their policy and agenda, whatever that is. It's nowhere. So I just wanted to make this board aware of that. It's going to be discussed tomorrow. We have a joint meeting with the select board tomorrow for trees, and I also added this on in case anyone wants to stay for this part of the discussion before the select board. Any other questions or comments?
So the town adopted the Community Preservation Act, I guess, and formed a Community Preservation Committee. So under Mass General Law, this is section, or chapter 44B, section 5. And it talks about various things, as well as the makeup of the Community Preservation Committee. And it says, among other things, section 5A, the committee shall include but not be limited to one member of the Conservation Commission established under 8C of Chapter 40 as designated by the Commission, one member of the Historical Commission established under Section 8D of said Chapter 40 as designated by the Commission, one member of the Planning Board established under Section 81A of Chapter 41 as designated by the board. And it goes on with park commissioner and I think housing authority and some other things. So it's, oh, sorry. Okay, so under Chapter 44B, Section 5, under Mass General Law, which our bylaw follows, it describes the makeup of the Community Preservation Commission and that the Select Board is, for CPC, has no jurisdiction in choosing the members that form that committee. So I have heard various pieces. I don't think I have the complete picture. I know that there's 4 different boards or committees that are before and being held by the Select Board, but at least with CPC, the Planning Board appointee, who is Lisa, is appointed by our board, not by Select Board. They have no jurisdiction.
They do under the town bylaw. They appoint, but the way the town bylaw is written is that the Select Board appoints the entity, like
That was,
one member of the Historical Commission as designated by the commission.
Yeah.
And evidently, the Select Board believes that they can designate the members of these particular entities, which is not in line with the law.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as a taxpayer, I can understand why a bylaw would be written like that, because you maybe want more of a process or something like that. But it's not, that doesn't follow Mass General Law. Yeah. But in either case, the individual committees or boards are appointing, and I think it's just a rubber stamp by the, by the Select Board, so I don't think they have any jurisdiction.
It should be.
Yeah.
Ms. Braccio.
So, thank you, Mimi, for what you said. I think you made very important points. I did speak at the Select Board meeting. I wasn't quite as eloquent as Mimi was. But I think that the point of all of this is, one of the things that's most concerning is having to follow the line and the agenda of the Select Board. And this town is best served by diversity, and it always has been. And on our elected boards, I think you have that. And I think our normal boards do ad hoc and standing committees and boards do an amazing job in this town. And I just worry the effect that this is going to have on anybody stepping forward. And I believe in Mr. Hamilton's post, he also said that it's like, he referred to the cabinet of Joe Biden, and whether you would want somebody, from the Republican side would serve on that cabinet. But I want everyone to remember, this is Southborough, and we're not driven by political, national politics here. We are friends and we are neighbors at the end of the day. And I think it's important, and I'll leave it at that, Mimi. I think you made the points that really needed to be made on this, and I hope that the citizens are concerned as well. Thank you.
Yeah, to your point that the boards and commissions in this town that were created by the legislative body are not Select Board cabinet members. They have to follow the charge that was voted on by the legislative body. And just how concerning this is that we're a tree city. Mr. Hamilton is opposed to public shade trees. This town voted in the Community Preservation Act. Mr. Hamilton is opposed to the Community Preservation Act. This town has been a huge proponent of open space, and in the 90s voted in a proclamation to preserve and protect open space. Mr. Hamilton is opposed to the protection of open space. So there's somebody that's not in line with the views of the people in this town. And I think that he sits on the select board.
Can I add one more thing? He thinks that the scenic road bylaw also is flawed. And that's scripted from state statute. So again, that's a little concerning as well. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Freddie Gillespie, I'm speaking as a citizen. I live at 78 Southville Road. I serve on the Open Space Preservation Commission, and I also serve on the Stewardship Committee. And for many years, I sat on the CPC, although now I consult for them legally. And I wanted to make a couple of points here. One about the bylaw. We passed, Mimi, myself, and a few other people were part of this Southborough Citizens Ballot Question Committee for the Community Preservation Act. We worked to do a ballot question to get the CPA passed. And afterwards, we wrote, well, I know I participated, I'm not sure who else, the bylaw established, after you passed it at ballot, you then had to write up, go to town meeting for forming the committee. And we worked with the Community Preservation Coalition and advice from town. You know, we were collaborative. We worked with the folks in town government, and we came up with the establishment of the CPC. The best advice, we were one of the early adopters. When this came up more recently, the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition said, basically, why the heck did you put in, you didn't have to go under the select board's authority for appointing. And we said that was the best advice we had at the time. No one envisioned that appointed, voted on members representing the planning board, conservation, and other entities that are on the CPC would not be appointed by our select board. It just didn't occur to anyone. The reality is, it's been recommended that somebody at some point go back and fix that mistake. You know, that may happen in the future. But in a civil society, it wouldn't be an issue. You don't have to like the person who the planning board voted to represent the planning board on the committee. They're not representing the select board. So same thing with historical, Shopsy, all of the seats. So, you know, that was a flaw, unintended, but again, the law says what is required, and particularly for the seats that are required in the CPA law, we added Shopsy and the Open Space Preservation Commission for good reason to have designated seats. The law doesn't say they have to be, but one would assume in a civil community one would want the Open Space Preservation Commission represented by their elected person. We don't have one right now. We hope to be getting a rep soon, but that's just another issue. I'm sorry, I digressed. But I wanted to say something, you know, you had a lot of talk about who you're representing when you sit on a committee, commission, or board that's non-elected. I guess elected boards, right? So now, does the planning board, after you're elected, have to follow? I'm not sure if it went that far. But I'm going to say, this is not an Al Hamilton, the bad guy situation. The whole Board of Selectmen is complicit in this. Not one member stood up for all those commissions that were held. Not one member stood up for the people who were denied reappointment. Not one member said, is this the right time to do it right before they're going to not, you know, it's an effective way of putting commissions out of business or committees. You don't have a quorum, you don't get reappointed, you can't do your business come July 1st. Is this like a hatchet over your head? Comply with what we want? And it was mentioned at that meeting that both the Stewardship Committee and the Open Space Preservation Commission wrote letters in opposition to what the Select Board wrote in support of the 40B. It feels like retaliation. You can't say, you know, there's just a coincidence, you meant that, you mentioned that. The Open Space Preservation Commission did our job under our charge to facilitate the preservation of open space. The Stewardship Committee did their job under their charge for overseeing Breakneck Hill Conservation Land. You know, the statement that we don't need more open space is in direct violation of the open space policy voted by the citizens of this town. So, you know, and what happens? You get a new selectman, now you have to change your policy? And I spoke with someone at the Inspector General's office, and, you know, maybe the Select Board needs to contact them to find out really what authority they have, because they do not have the authority to tell boards and commissions what to do once they're duly appointed. Obviously, they cannot reappoint us and put us out of business, but, you know, that's the tack they want to take. Okay, we'll find out tomorrow.
In all fairness, Chairperson Cook did push back on the comment about the letter writing on 120 and thought that, well, at least stewardship was brought up particularly, that they were well within their right and that is their charge.
Just to comment, yes, but still did not deny,
Correct.
vote against appointing all those people after they had just done a full sweep of all the other committees, even members who didn't fill in their re-sign-up sheet, even members they didn't know when their term limits were, and then said, well, we don't want a rubber stamp. They went through this whole long rubber stamping of committees who people didn't even say they wanted to be on the committee got appointed. And then the committees that had signed up to be reappointed were not.
Thank you. Mr. Murray.
Can I make a comment? Just in transparency, I did write a letter expressing my feelings to the Master Plan Implementation Committee, hoping to get their agreement that, you know, of my concern about work that potentially will not be done if the boards aren't filled. I did not get agreement on the letter. I had a quorum, and the other members felt that it was sort of not in the right spirit and really something that the Master Plan Implementation Committee shouldn't really be writing. But just an observation is that these are the four committees that are being held together with other committees that haven't been filled represent about 25% of the master plan goals and recommendations. So it is a concern. I thought it would be more of a concern to the Master Plan Implementation Committee, but they felt that there's other factors, and maybe the letter was really more my sentiment. But along the lines of my sentiment, I find it pretty disturbing that there are some committee members who have maybe only been appointed for a year, and they're potentially looking to maybe not get reappointed tomorrow night. I don't know if that's true with some of the newer members on CPC or others. And equally as disturbing that there are long-standing, hardworking committee members. The town has a very inconsistent way of, I think, looking at non-performers. I took actually the seat of Leo Bartolini on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And if you remember, he had a complaint, a citizen's petition that was put together, a citizen's complaint by possibly somebody that I know on this board, but with a lot of signatures and a lot of complaints. And so there was a public hearing on that person. Also, there was a public hearing, and he was a longstanding member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. There was also a public sort of hearing, or I guess at the Select Board, about Mr. Boland, the chair of the Public Works Planning Board, and I sit on that committee as well. And as we know, he has open meeting law violations, and also a huge disagreement of how that committee should be run, and, you know, essentially didn't want to meet. So in both those cases, they did not remove those members from the board.
The Select Board's not the appointing authority in the Public Works.
That's
Board.
correct. They held that, right. And that appointee was actually the moderator, but the moderator didn't remove that appointee. And I actually spoke to the moderator and didn't feel that it was his job to do that. So Southborough has a history of being tolerant, let's say, of people who step up to do work. And I find it really disheartening that there's people who are looking to do work. And I agree with Lisa that it is the diversity of thought that really, moves, I think, a lot of these plans, whether they're master plan goals and recommendations or other initiatives that come up throughout the years, it's really in the spirit of getting things done that you need a lot of voices to come together and create, a vision that's going to move things forward. And so I think that, Mr. Hamilton is, wrong, of course, but I'm hugely disappointed in the rest of the board because I'm afraid that we're not going to get volunteers if we continue with thinking like this.
Thank you.
So, Freddie Gillespie again. I wanted to make a comment about the master plan because the Open Space Preservation Commission is looking at the items identified for us to have.
So does this have to do with appointments?
It has to do with our committee being held. And you're talking about the master plan. I'm just saying, we have to, maybe it's not, we have to go in front of the planning board in front of the select board for our reappointment, our committee's reappointments. And as part of that, we have to share what we've been working on, how we're not operating outside of our lane, particularly for writing letters to the planning board. That's a big component that we have not operating within our authority. And we feel that we have been, for over 20 years now, writing letters to the planning board with request and support from the planning board, looking for that information even when we don't agree. But we also are trying to do the master plan implementation, and when I've mentioned that to different select board members, they poo-poo it as if it's not important, and that makes it challenging. So, we'll be mentioning it tomorrow is one of the things we're working on, because it is what we're working on, but we are well aware it doesn't give us authority. It's not our authority to exist. Our authority was through town meeting. But I just, when you're talking about the master plan implementation, how does a committee work on it if they're not being supported by we work on things and then it's like, no, you don't have to do that, or no, we don't care about that, so.
Thank you.
Can I have just one quick final point?
We have MBTA.
Nope, just quickly that, one of the things that was said at the meeting is the select board didn't rubber stamp, but yet over 45 people got reappointed, no issue. And if you look on their agenda for tomorrow night, the open space person coming in to interview is on the agenda, but yet there's someone else that's just on the consent agenda that, as far as I could see, hasn't served the town before. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Nothing else on this? Let's move on to MBTA Communities, Multifamily Zoning, Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, Multifamily Zoning by Right. Do you want to talk, Karina?
Let me give you a quick update. So on June 3rd, the planning board held a mapping session for public input to come to get some feedback on the required MBTA Communities Overlay District within the half-mile radius of the train station. We had 9 tables plus. We had really good turnout. We retrieved those maps. Attendees were able to collaborate with other members at their table, 6 to 8, 9 people at a table. Use stickers to mark areas where they felt it was their opinion an overlay district would be the best place to put there. In the meeting packet for tonight that is posted by the town clerk on the with the agenda, you'll see several iterations of the areas of feedback from the residents, which my assistant Colleen put into mapping. And I'm hoping Colleen will put some of that up on the screen for us. But there are at least 9 plus, I just can't remember the total number, different areas. I believe there was one area that had some repetitiveness by 3 of the tables. So what planning did is compiled these different overlay district areas that were recommended, provided a spreadsheet with each area that identified the parcel, the acreage of that parcel included in the area, and also the individual lot unit capacity that could then be added. And the goal was to get at least 10 acres for an overlay district that had a unit capacity of 150 units. And that could be done in either a 10-acre parcel or 2 5s. You can't go less than a 5-acre overlay district. If you have a chance, the public can, if you haven't had already, to look at those. They've been in the packet for several days. But the planning board's goal for this evening is to look at these, discuss them, and come up with hopefully one of the options that's preferred. The other thing is that the planning board's goal is to maintain the underlying zoning as residential B for these, so that we also have a draft bylaw that was prepared with the prior scenario. So we have two areas outside the half-mile radius which have already been established. One on Route 9 in the Madison Place area, and then also on St. Martin's Street, up towards Marlborough on the northwestern side of Southborough. So the last piece is this 10 acres within the half-mile station. So with this information, and I just want to point out that the maps on the during the mapping session included areas that showed dots where historic properties are, the purple area, light blue area of the Corderville Historic District, and then yellow parcels that were not non-conforming. Sorry, I couldn't think of that word. And then it also included in the backdrop gray areas that were excluded areas by the state from their mapping. So it gave the residents hopefully a relatively clear picture of, what areas would be most conducive. And remembering that you can use parcels that are excluded because you need to keep continuity between the overlay district. So 5 acres has to be contiguous, but we do need a total of 10. So that's kind of the breakdown. So what you'll see on the screen are, you'll see at the top of each image, it'll say Table 1, Number 1. So some of the tables had more than one option. So these graphics represent that. Let me show you something here. You probably can't see it online, but right up here, nice if they worked. Right here, you'll see it says Table 1, Number 1. So that was the table at the mapping session, and this was their first idea. And this represents the parcel number on the left side of the spreadsheet. The center column is the acreage of the parcel, and then the third column is the unit capacity, how many units could potentially be held, could be on that lot. And the goal is here, see how it's 12.758 acres? So that's at least 10 acres, and they met the minimum of 150 unit capacity here. And the purple area is the outline, is the overlay that was suggested by that table. So I won't belabor it anymore, but that's kind of the background. We have a pretty tight deadline. We're trying to get this into pre-adoption review. We've been in contact with EOHLC, the Director of Livable Communities, Chris Clutchman, who has met with us twice already via Zoom to discuss the concerns that the planning board had in a letter that they submitted looking for some relief to a deadline, relaxation of some of the requirement of unit capacity, that one I don't think is going over so big, but there was support possibly for moving the radius, the half-a-mile radius to the east slightly to capture some of the larger lots in the industrial zone. Could be industrial park. That's pretty much the big picture. I'll pass it on to Mimi. She probably has some more.
Thank you. So where do we start? Are there questions or comments on any particular layout from any board members? Ms. Houlihan?
So just looking at it, so there clearly are some repetitive areas, right? And so, like, what I wanted to just try to understand, and I think we don't necessarily have any early compliance modeling results. Like, there's this, a couple of tables have the exact thing. So it's between the Atwood and the Parkerville, and it's a land of, like, table 7, number 2, it's 12.66
Oh, the quarry.
acres. Yeah, so I have no idea if that could even meet the regulations, but I think there were like 3 options that were out there. So when I look across all of the different options, right, we want to try and figure out, like, what was majority, or how did people think about this? And I think it was that area. There was the area that involves some of the, I think it's Fitzgerald. Is it Fitzgerald Properties?
Blendon, Woodland, and Corderville. There was
Yes.
like a...
Yep. And then there's the stuff that's right down by the MBTA. That's some, like, right, the whole strip, some that has parcels of land. So I guess for me, the first one, for me, it was just such a different, that quarry area. I hadn't seen that before. So I just didn't know, like, it looked like there was a huge body of water in there. Like, it just didn't, I just didn't know if we had a perspective on that.
So every compliant parcel within the half-mile radius, I ran through the compliance model.
Okay.
And that's where those unit capacity numbers came from. So I didn't run the specific layouts after the mapping session, but all the individual parcels were run.
So that one overlaps the half-mile radius, so that's why I wasn't sure if that included, because I saw that it then extends out to Parkerville on a plot of land. It's table 4, number 2, or table 7, number 2, right there. So
Yeah, so you have to include the whole entire lot. So because there's a portion of that lot that is within a half mile,
Okay.
then the whole lot has to be included.
Okay, so then the question is, that other lot that's there, that, is that in there, that one that's highlighted, that 234, that's 2.16, 28 capacity?
Yeah.
Okay. So it meets the requirements. Okay, so that was just it was just a new view for me, so I just thought it was interesting. I think our challenge, just as a planning board, is that we have a lot of different options on the table. And so how do we narrow down, because we have to actually write a bylaw by, is it the end of this week?
Well, so the bylaw should be done.
Okay,
Because the bylaw, the only reference to the particular overlays is through the zoning. And the previous overlay was RESB zoning, and we're keeping that. So that, I don't think there's anything that changes on that, is there?
I didn't specifically relook at the draft, but I don't recall, other than the table, like Mimi said, referencing to Res B, or what underlying zoning is. They were referenced as area 1, 2, and 3, 1 being the station area. So unless it specifically has one sentence somewhere that says it consists of this particular, we can easily tweak that,
Yeah.
I think, if we're maintaining the overall approach.
Colleen, did you think that there was something that needed to change?
Change how?
On the bylaw. So you had
Oh, no.
mentioned,
Oh, I'm
you had
sorry. I
mentioned
thought
going back to Emily to have her look at it at
Just
a call today?
Yeah, I don't recall, but there was some stuff that, I wasn't sure if the parcels were added in there. But no, nothing comes to mind that we would have to update, but it would be good to have it looked over again.
Okay.
Yeah, so I looked at it quickly this
Okay.
afternoon. I think that we're good.
So-
And if not, just a little tweak.
So basically, everything on here, kind of, there's options that meet our requirements, and then, so I don't, like, part of me is like, do we run a quick, we have till the end of this month, could we run like a 3-day Survey Monkey where we get the town residents to say, here are your options, and you have to choose? Or are we comfortable making this decision?
So the concern I have with that is, the point of the mapping session was to glean consensus. So we now have that, and it would seem like the next step is to distill these different chosen lots or assemblages of lots, and assign like points as to, which ones were the most popular at the mapping session. And it would seem to me that that would be going concurrently with the public hearings. So that by the time the public hearings, are done, or closed, we have a map and a finalized bylaw. Does that make sense?
Well, except for we're trying to send it for
Yeah,
pre-adoption approval.
Before the public hearings start?
yeah.
Yeah.
We have to do that in like a week, right?
Well, because
Why is that?
takes 90 days.
Well, we did, just to recap a little bit, so the goal initially was to be ready for June 27th for a pre-adoption review submission. In speaking with Chris Clutchman, again from EOHLC, she indicated that she would support us if we had to work, cut into that 90 days, that she would work with her team to help expedite us if we get the information to them beyond June 27th.
I mean, it seems almost impossible to me, based on my experience with zoning
Yeah.
and the public hearing process, that we would have a map finalized and completed before the public hearings even start. And that would remain unchanged through the public hearing process, let alone town meeting.
So that deadline was set because of the state saying 90 days, they have 90 days to review. But they won't necessarily take the 90 days, so we could actually, if we had to, push into that 90-day timeframe. This is what I'm saying. Chris Clutchman from EOHC said in the meeting to us 2 weeks ago that it shouldn't be a problem because they have just gone through a big push of them recently with, earlier in the year town meeting, and that they should have some open bandwidth to address things faster. So they kind of had a bottleneck with everything coming in to be reviewed. And then in addition, she said because of the dilemma with the consultant and how that had set back Southborough at the last town meeting, there would be consideration to make sure ours got reviewed in time for feedback. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mimi, but I think that's what she alluded to.
Yeah, but I don't know how, like, a whole hearing process until September, if that will
Right.
stand.
And the first
True.
public hearing is the July meeting, right?
July 22nd is the goal, right?
Yeah, I think our plan was to come to like a planning board consensus of what we would put forward into the public hearing.
Tonight?
Yes.
Between now and when we have to submit that, yes, so that was what the plan was. So that's why I'm saying if we could take
Okay,
a
I
couple
didn't
extra
understand
days to
that.
do like a little, do we want to? Do we do a Survey Monkey, or is that just complicate things? Do we just make a decision based on what we saw and what we heard? But I don't think we have the liberty of,
So this is kind of like different than what I thought was going on.
And can I jump into,
I thought we were always pretty clear on that.
Okay.
I worry with doing a Survey Monkey, we had a really great turnout for the mapping session. And it was well publicized, and I just worry that if we go down the road of a Survey Monkey, you don't know people outside of Corderville could actually, potentially influence that. My suggestion would be, I think there's 3 clear areas along Southville, along Blendon Woods, and along Woodland. And I think that was, my impression, those were fairly consistent in the process. So mainly, I think that the most consistent was along Blendon Woods and in different interactions of that. So, sorry, go ahead.
So one question is, previously we had said we weren't going to include any historic properties in some of the mapping sessions. There were a lot of historic properties. If we want to stick with that, I think that we can narrow down some of the choices a bit. And there was one that had a non-contiguous lot, so it didn't really meet compliance. Sorry.
Do you want the bigger one?
No, I have my notes on here somewhere, and it'll take me 2 hours to find it.
Lisa, do you by chance have the table numbers that you thought were the 3 areas? Because I'm happy to pull those up.
I can certainly find them.
Okay.
So it was Table 8, number 1. There's that one 3.491 acre lot is not contiguous with the 6.6509 lot. So the big lot isn't contiguous with any of them, and if you take that out, it's not compliant.
So maybe what, this line here, that's not,
So this is the lot right here. This is the road.
It's a street.
oh, okay. Got it.
I can't hear you, Jesse, if you're talking.
She said she can't hear you if you're talking.
I was just discussing with Mamie what she was referring to.
Oh, gotcha.
So that would make, that particular layout would be 9.6 acres and only 112.
We're talking about
Units.
8-2, right? Table 8, number 2? or
One.
Number 1.
This one. This
8-2, number 1.
This lot is not contiguous.
4-42, which is 43 units, which is the largest component of the capacity.
So it would seem the cure for that would be to incorporate 4-38. Correct?
Good. And I have one concern about 4.38 and 4.37, but maybe I can talk to EOHLC about that. So those 2 lots are deemed non-compliant, as is the little one across the street, 4-2, and they're all under common ownership. So under the merger doctrine, they could be considered one lot. So if they were overlaid, they could be built on, although we never got any credit for the units on them. I don't know if that can be cured from talking to HLC.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to open all the maps that are single, like you're seeing now. And as we're talking, I'll close the ones that you think aren't compliant or you don't like, and hopefully we'll end up with a few left. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, I also just wonder, and I know tables have submitted multiple scenarios, so I guess the question is, were they prioritized? And I don't know that answer.
Yeah, they had number 1, number 2.
Yeah.
So I know they had number 1, number 2, but in their minds, were they, this is our first choice?
Yes, yes. We
Okay.
went around and asked them all.
Okay. So I do think we should look at those. So when you look at the table number 1, I think that Southville area becomes the priority, like table, except for table 1, they did not choose Southville. Table 2 chose Southville. Table 3 chose Southville as their number 1 priority. Table 4 indicated to shift to the east, which would include Southville. Table 5 said number 1, which is shift to the east, which would include Southville.
So I think the shift to the east are those industrial parcels way down at the other end,
Yep.
not including these ones
Yeah,
here.
no, I know, but I
Okay.
think that still brings our focus down
To Southville.
back to that Southville. Like if we're looking at the prioritized thing, table 6, theirs was number 1, shift to the east. Number 7, 1A was shift to the east, and 1B was Southville. Table 8 was Southville. So I think if you look at that from based on their entire prioritization process, everybody has selected that Southville area as their number 1 submission.
So along those lines, if we get the feedback that we're waiting for on the shift east,
So it seemed pretty apparent that that is not an issue.
that we will be able to do.
We can do that, yes.
Okay.
We just have to send an email to HLC and say we're shifting our half mile to the east, and they'll send back an email that says okay, and then we'll submit that with the compliance model.
If I can just add, I think there were kind of 2 schools of thought. It does look apparent that a lot of it is on the Southville side. I spent a lot of time, it looks like around table 5 and table 6, and I heard a few things I just wanted to share I hadn't thought of previously. And the reason that at least table 6 wanted, there's a sort of a lock of land between Corderville and Woodland, and they felt that they didn't want any one neighborhood to be burdened. So they were really very sensitive to the folks on Southville, the folks on Blendon Woods, the folks anywhere, any one neighborhood to get kind of, hit kind of hard. So that's one of their reasons that they felt it was sort of, dispersed a little between the neighborhoods, but also between Woodland and Corderville. And I thought that was kind of a very interesting view.
Yeah, and I'll add too on Woodland. So it was, Woodland was shown in, I believe, table 1, 5, 6, 8, and 9. Granted, in 5, 6, 8, and 9, it was shown as their number 2 option, but I again had some of those same conversations with people that Debbie had, that they were trying to find a way to offset it from Blendon, not all in one neighborhood, to shift it a little bit to Woodland and shift it a little bit to Corderville too. So just for that feedback as well.
Do we know what a shift to the east, what it would include?
I can pull one up. Let's see.
And we could designate how far we shift to the east.
It would have to be within a half mile, so you don't get much. You get one lot, except for the one lot that you get, the lot next to it is under the same ownership, so whether that merger doctrine would come to fruition.
So remember, the shift was taking the center point, which was chosen by EO as like the MBTA center of the platform, and we were thinking shift it to the edge of the MBTA property. That would be kind of the limit, so that you're still on the station, the actual MBTA station locus, but to the east, taking it off the center.
So these two lots are the MBTA station?
You're no longer sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's share again.
So I also want to point out for people who are here, the map that's on the easel over here represents all the areas we're talking about in different shades that are in the packet online.
So if I take it from the corner here, the furthest east, along the track.
Yeah, I'd move it down to the south a little bit.
Down to the south?
Just on that parcel, but just not right in the corner.
Right about, tell me when to stop.
That's good. There we go.
All right.
So we'd lose the quarry if we do that.
And you have, all the yellow properties, remind me from the legend, are the non-conforming lots.
Yes.
So here's the quarry, right?
Yeah.
Over here.
Can you shift that over a little bit, Colleen? Because the Zoom square's in the middle of where,
Or just minimize the zoom square on the top there.
oh, there
You
we
mean
go.
like this?
You were there a second ago.
Is that better?
There.
Yes.
Perfect. So it adds lot 52.
I see.
These are owned by the same person, right? The Otey brothers.
8, yes. No, 8 and 52.
This one's also, but I think, doesn't
Yeah.
this one have a restriction?
Yep.
Okay. So this one and this one are both the same.
No, that one
It's
and
a-
the one further,
2 and 8.
yeah,
This and this.
yeah.
So if the merger doctrine holds, you could go, it could include out to here? If these two are owned
Yeah.
over 5 years, then it would reach to, the lot would fill in.
So that 8 is 4 acres. And 52 is 2 acres.
So I worry a little bit about lumping it all in one neighborhood, in one little strip, that little portion of Southborough that's already, how many non-conforming lots are there, is now potentially going to be faced with, all in one section, 150 units. Traffic-wise and everything, I worry as busy as Southville is already, to put that burden on the neighborhoods over there. I understand the reasoning for doing it, but I just worry of the additional burden.
Do you have a proposed alternative?
Well, I think there's a lot of good options out there. I think that the incorporating part of the blended woods, the woodland, again, is kind of shepherding it, not just in one condensed area. It would spread it out a little bit, and I think it would create a lot of different options.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that would have a greater tendency to, if it's developed at all, to be over a very long term. Whereas having that 4-acre vacant lot would probably see, yeah.
Previously.
And those 2 lots are 77-unit capacity, just those two lots together.
And is
There's a
there,
couple of the 5 acre, this one's 6 acres with 80 units. And then, let's see.
yeah, was there a preferred one that you had, Lisa, or that you saw that was representative and met both the capacity and the acreage? Because there are definitely different variations
There
of
are,
it.
there are. Table 5 came up with 2 of them. I mean, honestly, Marnie, I didn't come up with one specific, but it seemed like, as far as
This
the
was a very
area,
popular one.
yeah, the area on Woodland, it's the same specific area came
It
up
is.
over and over
Yeah.
and over again. Table 5, Table 6, and it may not have been their first choice per se. Table 8 kind of had the same area on Woodland, and they connected it the same way with the Blendon Woods. They added like on Table 8, number 2, they connected it through the road to 2 specific parcels that are kind of on the Blendon Woods side.
So table 5, number 3, is sort of in that, right?
It's a smaller piece of it, yeah.
Well, so would it not make sense then maybe to incorporate that one plus?
Southville.
Yep.
Yeah, then, yeah.
All right, we're
Then it
done.
would definitely be spread out.
Wait, should we make a motion? When's town meeting? Let's go.
I love you.
So
Seltzer on. No, just kidding.
which Southville were you referring to?
Well, that's a good question. So maybe Colleen, if we, yeah, we just basically need to form one that incorporates those
5
parcels to the east that seem to meet the consensus on Southville.
Oh, so those 2 industrial parcels?
Yes.
Okay.
What, Colleen, is it possible to quickly, refer to those industrial parcels and come up with the acreage?
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you want.
one's 4 acres, one's 2 acres.
So that's 6, and what's the units?
4 acres is 51, 2 acres is 26.
And what do we have?
So Jesse,
Okay,
just
so
one more
we're
thing to
good.
consider on Southville. I mean, we had the discussion tonight about the schools as well. And if you're creating the opportunity to somebody to come in and build 50 units or 100 units tomorrow, 77 tomorrow, that's going to have some level of impact because they won't be, chances are they won't be rental. Chances are they'll be homes, which is kind of to the point that Kathy was making. Again, I don't know what the right makeup is for Southville, but to spread it out more than just 2 lots that we know would go tomorrow. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that this whole, I was going with the shift to the east and the industrial lots because of, it seemed like that was the consensus.
What about doing, again, I don't know, I'd have to look at it again, but even maybe one of the industrial that would allow for some immediate, or because Mimi, the merge would, with the same owner, would that require both lots?
So my concern if we pick the one lot and not the other is that the owner could say they're merged for the zoning and we wouldn't have gotten credit for those 51 units, but they'd get built anyway.
I mean, we are a little bit hamstrung by the fact that we need contiguous.
So that first one that you mentioned in Blendon Woods, that was at table, it's the 6 acres,
Table
So-
5, number 3,
table 5, number 3.
6.1734 acres,
That
80
came up
units.
A few times. And then, so that's 80 units, so we would need to find another one that has a minimum of 70 units and at least 5 acres. So if we were looking down in Southville,
Right, that's kind of where we were at with the, because that's 77 units. And that's another 6 acres, so we're exceeding acreage and unit capacity. If we go with those two, and that's
I mean,
it.
I still come back to, it's unfortunate it's only 10% affordable housing, but the intent is to provide housing. I mean, we could at least put it out there for a public hearing, knowing that the majority of the people did say shift to the east. And then we have a bit for the 5 acre from the Blended Woods area, and then the 5 acres from, and we meet our requirements. And it's somewhat of a compromise based on the people that have provided, and it's in good faith of the law, I think, in my perspective.
So is it 58 and 52 or 52 and 8? Just so I'm clear, which one specifically? Sorry.
So the 77 units would be 52 and 8,
Okay.
which would need to check with Chris Clutchman on to see if she said that they would be flexible, so check with her and see if that, because the 8 really isn't in it, but they're under the same ownership.
I'm all for collaboration, and I think we do this and we bring it forward to the public hearings. And if we need to adjust it, we'll adjust.
These right here. You need to comment and meet me.
So we
No,
shift to
these
the
two.
east,
So if we
52
shift
and
to the
8.
8, this will
It'll
be in
catch
it.
this
Yeah.
and this. Do table 5, number 3 in the industrial, shift to the east.
Oh, I thought I did.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. I just want to make sure we.
No, I'm in agreement.
52 and 8.
I feel like the board has reached consensus at this point.
So it would be table 5, number 3, correct?
Yep.
And then the 2 industrial parcels down on Southville Road
And that's with a shift to the east,
That's what the shift.
with the
with the shift to the
circle,
east.
maintaining the center point of that circle somewhere within the MBTA station property. Right, like we were looking before.
Yeah.
Before it was near the center, so the shift would be whatever it takes to get.
This is the circle for the shift. Oh, I might not shaped, let me share that one.
Yeah, just one last look at the shift, what the circle would look like, so that you're all on board.
There it is. So 58 and 52. They're both in it. If we shifted it as far as we
No,
could to the,
52 and 8.
It's
Colleen.
8.
Keep going.
52 and 8,
oh, this one.
Yeah,
yeah.
because they're same ownership
Yes, they are.
at this time. And Colleen, could you remember where the center point was of this circle?
Yeah, we always use the T station right here.
But with the shift to the east, is that the eastern shift already?
No, it's just, it's
shift to the
Along
east.
the line
along
of
the,
River Street?
yeah,
Okay, I just want to be
eastern
crystal clear. Somewhere
portion.
along there.
Yeah.
That captures number 52,
yeah,
but
So
still
we'll
keeps
do
the
it one more
center on the
time.
MBTA parcel. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay. Colleen, did you get that?
No, I couldn't hear you.
No, you're clear with the areas, right? Map, table 5,
Yes.
number 3, and then lots 52 and 8. And that is with a shift to the east with the radius. Yeah. I'll make sure.
And so we'll have to run that by Chris Clutchman.
Okay. And would you be so kind to run it in the model? Is that something you could do to?
It's been run.
It is, okay, it has been. All
Yeah.
right, it seems to,
Yeah, they were run, Andrew Pfaff ran them. Because that was one of the,
one of his.
one of the thoughts of how to
yeah, comply.
The two lots, the 52 and 8, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, I got the two maps.
Paul Carter, 6 Hillside Avenue. I think that the planning board is doing a great job. This is a very difficult law to deal with it. It's very conflicted, it's flawed in many ways. I think the board has done a very complete job of getting public input over and above what is normally might be done. I think that the board coming forward with one alternative or even 3 alternatives and why they picked the one. You know, the town needs leadership on this, and I think the board has gotten all the input, and the board has all the, other thing I would say is just be ready to explain how you chose the parcels you did, under what criteria it was. I would even go back, it's not relevant at this, but the matrices, that exercise that you went through, so that people understand that there are quantifiable, justifiable criteria that you used, that this wasn't arbitrary. And you balance that with all the public input that you got. That's all.
Thank you.
Did we
Anyone else?
confirm the acreage of those two? I just want to make sure, because I was looking for it on here.
Of
Oh,
Of
4 and
those two,
2.
yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, so we're about 12-point-something acres with 157 units. Okay, want to be clear. Sorry.
John Cage, 6 Parker Street. The discussion on moving the half-mile circle to the east to include those industrial areas, I think is a wise idea on this. It's going to use some land. It's going to give us at least half of what you need. That idea of using the property up as well, up on the Woodland and Porterville area, again, another 5 acres, 75, 80 units, gets us the rest of the compliance that we need. And it also addresses some of the traffic concerns that are in that area. And just, you know, we already have a busy area down on that Southville near the train station 85. And while this is going to add some to that, you know, a lot of these people are going to be walking, hopefully, to the train instead of driving their car, unless it's raining. So I just want to thank you for, you know, looking at these ideas and being open to these ideas and all of the work that's gone into arranging these hearings and providing a lot of this documentation. Thank you.
And thank you for attending all these hearings and all your feedback. It's been very helpful, and all the other public who have offered their input and feedback. And you too, Mr. Carter.
And we'll need you both at town meeting.
Yeah, I'll be there.
That'll be the real challenge, but, you know, the board's done the best they can to come up with something good, you know, that's all the board can do.
So do we need to, you're not watching the Celtics, are you?
The Dropbox, which this was
Do we need to make a motion to put forth those two?
So the motion, actually, I should, oh, you got it.
Map for table 5, number 3.
What's the second one? Okay, thank you. So the motion is for the planning board to put forward for Area 1, the maps from Table 5, number 3, for one contiguous lot grouping, and the second being lots 52 and 8.
Second.
Perfect.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I will just say on 52 and 8 with the approval of HLC to make sure that they'll accept that, although they have said that they'll be flexible.
Yep. Agreed.
No more discussion. All in favor, Latrell, yes.
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes?
Demiria, yes?
Brascio, yes.
Wow, that was really good.
Excellent, guys.
That was a lot easier than I
think we
thought.
should give
Any other
ourselves a
big,
round of
any other
applause.
big problems we should solve?
You're
I was
on a roll
anticipating
tonight.
at least 2 hours.
I think it was worth the wait because I really like this plan over the one that we were trying to put forward for annual town meeting. Yeah. And I think the neighbors hopefully will.
Yeah, I like that it's split apart.
I just want to make a point of this is the way this board works, and I love it. I think we work so well together, and we are cohesive. We have good conversations. I think you brought in the fact that we wanted to use that blend in woods and really take in what the neighbor said. So again, like kudos to this team.
Here, here.
And of course, there's Colleen's mapping skills.
Yeah, that, we should actually call that out. To Karina and Colleen, really, none of this would have actually happened without them at the helm, like with all what they do every day, and then they're able to actually build these maps, they did all of the prep on that side, and Mimi guided a lot. She did a lot of the compliance modeling, so really, like, thank you for all of the heavy lifting, because it made our job easier.
Oh, you're welcome, and I'd like to thank Colleen for really putting her nose to the grindstone on these maps and
Yeah.
working with the new GIS mapping, because that was also a shift in the middle of everything, so. Thanks, Colleen.
Yeah, in the
Thank
new,
you.
Mimi.
in being able to get that new data layer that showed the non-compliant lots, so
That was all Karina.
we're
And
all
Mimi, I wanna thank-
fabulous.
Mimi, I want to thank you too.
Oh, I'm like ready to pack it up and go home. The next item is a discussion item, Chapter 61 properties, Northborough Road, right of first refusal. So I think, Debbie, you wrote a letter?
I drafted a letter based on our last planning board meeting, the sentiment, I don't have a letter in front of me, but
in your packet, too.
in the packet.
The very last page of your packet.
Oh, yeah. Just to capture this, the sentiment of our last meeting, to show our support for at least moving forward, that this right of first refusal for Chapter 61 property at Northborough Road, these sorts of opportunities don't come along all the time, and working collaboratively. And it's just a real unique, a real opportunity to acquire a potential property where we can have real affordable housing. To Ms. Cook's point, that is part of planning board's purview as well, and we take it very seriously. It also, I think, shows that we are thinking about all of our, a lot of different things, not just parking and zoning and that sort of thing. So this is just in response to the discussion that we had at the last meeting. And if anybody, there are a lot of points, good points that were made, so if anybody has any comments or anything, I don't know if the letter will be, how the letter will be taken by the select board, but,
Thought it was well done.
okay.
Great job.
Yes, thank you. It's a very good letter. I don't have anything to add to it. I think it's,
It was great.
anybody else have any questions or comments? Perfect. So can we launch that? Thank you very much, Debbie.
Thank you.
So Debbie, I'll make sure it's we already formatted it, so
Yeah.
we'll take the draft off and
Yes,
let it go.
thank
okay?
you. Are we not using our new logo at the top of our letters, the one that Marnie created? Can we use that officially, or is that just for slides?
Oh, well, I've been using this one because the other departments,
Yes.
and I just kind of mocked we could check if if they're using something different, then we could enhance ours. I'll look into that.
I love Marnie's, what is that? It's a logo, right, that she created for the slides for town meeting. It's sort of a modern look.
I'll check.
Okay.
Okay. Planners report?
Next item on the agenda,
Looking at.
planners report.
Okay. All right. 6/17/24, send. Okay. Send a letter to select. Okay, not too much. Say it pretty quickly. So the first item I had project updates, 40B projects, one-stop grants. The 40B was there for, in case Kathy wanted to come in, but we were able to push those 40Bs to the beginning of the meeting tonight. The one-stop grant is something that Andrew Dennington wanted us to get on the agenda, and we're pushing that to August, and he was on board with that, if I'm not mistaken. There was a question about vegetation.
Can I just expand on that?
You can.
So we've had an issue in town with one-stop grants that they're due in June, and we start talking about them on May 31st. So Andrew wanted to start working collaboratively with the planning board and the EDC to work on exploring Route 9 and seeing if there's any zoning changes that would help bring more business onto Route 9 a year ahead of time, so we'll have a real project and really know what we want to get out of it by the time it's due to be filed. So that's what he's going to talk about.
Why is that not happening till August, though? That's the part I was...
Oh, because we were targeting MBTA communities for this evening. We thought it would be a much longer push. And then we had Kathy come in for the 40Bs and anticipated some discussion on that. And then July 22nd is when we're opening the MBTA communities public hearing.
Right, but we can't do that until 7 o'clock anyway, so why not have Mr. Dennington in for 6:30?
We could. It was just decided that we would stagger them, because at that point, we thought it would be a heavier push, and I think there may also be I think it's too late for a public hearing coming in 22nd. I have to check, but we reached out to him, and he was on board with that, but we could ask him if he wants to attend sooner.
See if he has a preference.
Yeah, I can do that.
I mean, we're still going to have a public hearing at the August meeting,
Yeah.
right? So that's not going to alleviate.
No, but
It's not like
there
it's
was
gonna be
something we
easier.
asked him. Here it is, I forgot my glasses. We can add discussion for one stop to either 6:17 or 7:22. However, since we are trying to get MBTA accomplished, it may be more constructive to schedule the topic for 7:22 or later discussion. Oh, no, so he was slated for 7:22. I was
Okay.
confusing that with.
Thanks.
Okay. Unless we hear otherwise from him, and I'll follow up with you. But we'll put him for 7:22. Okay, one stop. 7:22. All right, there has been a lingering question about other utilities, vegetation management plans. We got feedback from Mark Purple. Mimi had asked, does Eversource have an approved vegetation management plan? The only one I'm aware of is National Grid, and Mark responded in an email that according to Jay Talaman, these right-of-way plans are not approved at the local level.
Oh, you know what that was? And I realized it,
Was that different?
yeah, that's the gas line.
Yeah.
It's not in the, public right-of-way. It's in their right-of-way on private property.
Okay. So is there still a question as to the other utilities like
Yeah.
Eversource? Okay.
Well,
Not Eversource. There's National Grid, there's cable.
the
TV.
cable, yeah,
Okay. All right.
and whoever else shares poles.
All right, I know that Colleen had reached out to someone in Chelmsford that she worked with previously, the town administrator there, and.
The town manager.
Town manager, yeah, and he had said that they had only seen National Grid in there. Am I wrong, Colleen?
Yes,
Well, I
that's
think
exactly what he
that
said.
this question came up because didn't
you see, wasn't a detail on for some other utility
Yeah.
doing tree trimming or something?
Yeah, but it was some time ago, so, I mean, I think we're maybe coming to an answer. Yes, and it was also based on, I think, when we had National Grid come in. And I think one of the gentlemen who came said that they had previously had relationships of some sort with the other pole users, but they don't have those relationships anymore. So it kind of left the question, does that mean the other users of the pole can do their own vegetative, tree trimming, or does it mean that they can't touch any of the trees? It's owned by, National Grid. So I don't think we really have an answer yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah. All right, I have to digress a little bit because as far as Andrew Dennington, sorry. I had asked him, because he wants to talk about the one-stop to analyze the Route 9 commercial zoning to entice businesses to come to town. So we're still good with July 22nd, if he's on board with that? Okay. Okay, just making sure.
The other thing was the.
Building commissioner.
Yep.
Introduction.
Yep.
Yeah, good memory there. He starts July 1st, so we could ask for him to maybe briefly attend and meet the planning board on the 22nd as well.
That, actually,
Yeah,
and this is just me, but I think that is a separate 6:30 appointment for the board at the August meeting,
okay.
personally. Because otherwise, now that July 22nd could be extremely laborious.
Does everybody kind of see it that way? Okay, thanks.
Okay, we can do that. What did we have here? I just forgot my glasses, I'm sorry. So the EDC was so kind to offer up some training classes with an annual subscription, and planning took them up on their offer, and it's called planetism, something like that. Planet is, it's like a Planet Citizen combined. So she signed us up, and there's a whole load of different, very interesting workshops. So if anyone's interested, it's like a shareable one. If somebody wants it, we'll give you the planning board member can.
I think that she sent out the links for people to sign up.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, excellent, yep. She's good, she promotes a lot of interesting things like that. So that came through. There was a email from the interim building commissioner that he was notified by 2 members of the Framingham Business Association that Framingham may be reaching out to the town of Southborough and possibly other towns along Route 9 to discuss an overall approach to signs and sign ordinances in the hope of some unity along Route 9. Apparently, they've been experiencing some complaints with signs in Framingham and antiquated sign bylaws and other issues. So I haven't heard anything further on that, but it's just to keep on the back burner.
We don't want to be in line with their signs.
No.
They can comply with our bylaw.
Do we know what that means really with antiquated signs? I mean, is it sort of a local issue? Like, do we understand what any of that means? Okay.
It doesn't address neon, it doesn't address the message boards. A lot of towns haven't updated their things.
LED boards and things like that, although we don't allow billboards.
I voted against that on the CBA.
Yeah.
And evidently influenced the board.
So every town has their own sign bylaw, but I think they're trying to make things more consistent along Route 9. But we're not going to their model.
No. But this is one of those things that there's lots of grants out there for studies and whatnot when you are working with another community. So there'll be money out there.
So they're using us for money, is that what this is?
Maybe. We actually have there's a lot of federal grants that all of a sudden became available. I haven't looked into those yet.
All right.
All right, just to quick move on, because we're on a good pace here. The MTC has put out a survey for the select board to understand the best time for most residents for the upcoming fall town meeting. So there's a, oh, thank you. You're trying to shut me up. I know it. What, oh, thanks a lot. So there's a survey out there. I think I passed that on to everybody. If anyone wants to, they can find it on the town website, I'm sure. Okay, and then Tree City USA signs. I think, Debbie, you and I can work on if the DPW has those and push them to put them up and where to put them. Then we have, that was old. That was old. That's it. And we have one set of meeting minutes.
Sure, I just wanted one thing that's on here that wasn't mentioned, the special town meeting. I guess the select board's going to decide tomorrow based on the survey when that date is.
And also, I'm working on the performance evaluations. I'm late, but they were asked early. But I'm trying. As soon as they're done, I'll let you know. And I think Mimi is usually the one assigned to work with me on that. Okay. And we have 2 tree removal applications tomorrow at the select board. One is 20 Woodbury at 7 o'clock, and the other is the DPW May 2024 tree list. And Debbie, you had a question about why some are on a list, the DPW list, and not. So the ones that stay on the DPW list are the ones that are potentially a safety hazard or considered or opined by the DPW and the arborist to be an issue. If it isn't and it's a healthy tree, the applicant is on their own to submit their own application for scenic road tree removal. So they're already vetted by the DPW who feel that those could be a problem. But not an imminent hazard. If they're an imminent hazard, they don't make that list.
No, that's all fine, but from a town perspective, if somebody's driving by and they see a notice on the tree, they're not going to go to the legal ad and say, where do I find the packet? Oh, I should go to the planning board. A lot of people are going to the DPW tree section, and DPW only posted one of the hearings. They didn't post the other one. Ironically, the one they did not post would be the one that people were most against.
And I did.
3 healthy trees.
I emailed the DPW, Chris Leroy and Bill Cundiff and Tammy Rice, their admin, to ask them to put it on their
Yeah, so I
their
mean,
website.
we have a, split process going on and whatnot, but we have to think about where do people find information, because we do really have to work on educating the public, and we do have enough people in town who go to the DPW tree site. So it has to be complete, whether or not it's DPW's,
I'm
whether
guessing
it's
it
an
was just an
applicant.
oversight this time, because in the past, they're usually there. The focus was so on this DPW list that I think it was just a miss.
Mhm.
If it isn't, I'll get right, badger them and do my nagging, so, okay.
Motion is for the board to approve the meeting minutes from May 20th, 2024.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor. Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes?
Ratio, yes.
Motion to adjourn?
1 second. This young man would like to speak.
Sorry, I retract it.
Grant Farrington, 58 Flag Road. Just on the matter of the trees, I sent the board this
Yes.
evening email with trees that I did object to. I sent an email to Chris Leroy tonight, so there's photos there, the reasons why I will be objecting. I find it a bit disappointing. I know that planning board doesn't control which trees are obviously put on the list. It is largely from resident requests, but we find ourselves here multiple years into the new process in which healthy green trees are, slated for removal, and if you don't happen to see it when you're driving by, then you could miss it. So I hope that you consider rejecting the requests. I visited all the trees as usual. That's my thing now, I guess. And some of them are clearly dead. I didn't object to those, like all the ones on Southville. But there are a number that are really concerning, and I would hope that you vote to reject the proposal to remove them.
Will you be attending the meeting tomorrow?
I will be.
Thank you.
For multiple reasons, but yes.
And Grant, thank you very much. I found your comments very, very helpful, along with your pictures, gave a whole different perspective, so thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes?
Stein, yes?
Houlihan, yes?
Jamiria, yes?
Brusher, yes.
Colleen, don't forget to stop.